if you take 1 tablespoon of being a DJ, add 2 teaspoons of working for Apple and working for Disney, and then add a finely chopped background of coming from Peru, mix it all up, and this is what you get. You get the innovation, the passion, and the drive that is Martin Morales, our guest today. I mean, you'd have to be very brave to try and stop Martin and hold him back. He has ambition in spades, or pints probably is a better analogy for a chef. He's built a truly 21st century and dynamic business, spanning 5 London restaurants, comprising the Ceviche and Andina brands. You've several cookbooks, a record label, an art gallery, not to mention the YouTube channel, masterclasses, magazines, pop-ups, charity events. I'm out of breath already, the list goes on. How do you do it? How do you cram it all in would be the first question.
Welcome everyone. Thank you very much for coming. I feel very grateful to be here, and especially with some of the people featured in the books, and congratulations to you guys. How do I do that? Well, I don't do it, we do it as a team. So teamwork makes the dream work, as everyone says. And so really it's about finding the right skill set along the team. Yes, I might have some of those initial ideas, but it all started with a vision, a true authentic vision, a real look at myself and wanting to do what I love and what I thought was needed in the UK, in London at the time, and how I could make people's lives better through that. And that was some of my background, looking at myself deeply. What is my DNA? What is my background? What can I offer that's different? And what do I absolutely love doing? And that was mixing all these things together. And Steve Jobs always used to say, trust that the dots will join up in future. And so my dots were being born to a British father and a Peruvian mother, being born in Peru and having lived there and being passionate about my food, my music, the culture that I was first brought up with, but also being passionate about my culture and my people here, because I'm half British, and seeing what I can give, and bringing all those things together after the experiences that I had and what change I wanted to make. So that's how I do, that's the beginning of the purpose. But how do we do what we do is by really exciting people about that experience. The core experience is the in-restaurant experience, and that is evolving at a very fast pace. And luckily, with my work with concerts and with music and with atmospheres and buildings, I was able to put that also to food and to restaurants.
Well, we'll touch on all of that over the next few minutes. First of all, let's just go back. Let's spool back to the beginning. You came out of university. You'd been a DJ. How did you, because I think you then went to work for Apple, how did you make that leap into Apple? Because it's not an easy company to get into.
Can I just sort of ask, can you all hear me without the mic, just out of interest? Yeah, is that better than, because this one really works and that one doesn't. Is that okay? Is that okay by everyone producing?
It's loud enough at the back?
Is it loud enough at the back when I talk like this? Is it okay? Can you guys hear me at the back? Yeah? Yeah? I think that would be much... Yeah. That would work nicer.
More personal.
Yeah.
So how did you get into Apple? How did all that begin?
How did I get into Apple? I was working for... I used to work for... my first love was music, and that's the way I could express myself. Well, actually, I had 2 loves, right? When I came to this country after coming from a place at the time... Peru right now is a beautiful place, by the way. It's a place that's the best place in the world to go and travel, eat, enjoy. It's wonderful in that way. And but at the time when I lived there in the 80s, it was a place of terrorism. There was a civil war going on, and there was a Shining Path guerrilla movement that was sort of an ISIS of the time. And we suffered a lot. So we came to this country, and my dad said, I'm going back to Britain, I'm going to take my kids. We came here. And one of the ways that I made friends in Leicestershire, where I landed, was by cooking for them, aged 12, 13, and also by showing them some different types of music. And so those were real ways that I could express myself, link back to my original identity and my culture, and attract people with something that was different. And so those things were always with me. And so I had a career first in the music industry, first making the tea and then running companies for Apple, for Disney, for EMI, and a few startups along the way, and launching different artists. And then I just had this burning desire, having worked in restaurants and bars when I was 17, 18, also as a silver service waiter, a pot wash and a barman. I thought, I really want to express this passion I have for our cooking. And I'd waited for a long time thinking, when is the right time for me to have the management skills and the skill set and the courage to start my own business, and also waited the right time for the marketplace. When is the right marketplace? When is the market going to be right for something as bizarre and wonderful and innovative as this thing called Peruvian food that no one knows about? And so I waited and waited and waited for the right time for me and for the marketplace. And that's how Ceviche started. But your question was about Apple, and your question, and
I was going to bring
Apple,
you back to that.
And Apple was really, after working in the music industry for, 10 years, I could see that me and my team at EMI were one of the first to start using digital technology. This was, obviously post-email, but the beginning of sort of, in a way, middle of Facebook, but the beginning of Twitter, and we sort of could see that something was happening. Could see that Napster was taking hold on the industry and causing a serious effect on the industry that was detrimental. And so recorded sales were really plummeting, and the traditional record industry was beginning to die off in its previous incarnation. And I said, well, look, Apple is a company that's very, very innovative, doing something very different and proposing something new in music. The iPod, I think, had not been launched, or it was about to, but I would hear grumblings. I knew the product itself, the desktops, which I loved to bits, and I just thought it was hugely creative. And I got a call. I got a call from Steve's right-hand person, Shalene Jodar, who's his headhunter, and said, look, do you want to come and be one of the founders of iTunes Europe? Because we're launching in the US, we're going to launch in Europe. And I said, great, that's really interesting. And I was about to start, I mentioned to you before, I was about to start a management company, artist management company, because that is where the center of the business was at. The artists were starting to control their own business, rightly so. 360 degrees, records, publishing, concerts, and managers right next to them could be able to control that and monetize that, and guide the careers of talent, which I loved doing as well, even though I was just in the records and sort of publishing side of things as well.
But you were at some big names. I mean, Katie Tunstall, Joss Stone.
Yeah,
Who else did you work with?
Well, then at Disney, at Apple, we worked with all kinds of people, because we launched the iTunes Festival, which was an original little bit of an idea that I had. I worked on an iTunes radio project at the time, which I don't think that turned into iTunes Music now, but has evolved as well. And we worked with all kinds of artists, because Apple became the main platform for music artists, outside of the big broadcasters, whether it's Radio 1 or whether it's MTV at the time. But at Disney I worked with Miley Cyrus, Jonas Brothers, Demi Lovato, Selena Gomez, all these very incredibly young talent that were acting and music and that wanted to have careers, and very talented.
So what made you make that switch from working with big names, big products? I mean, iTunes doesn't get that much bigger from a brand point of view than Apple and iTunes. What made you want to make that switch into something which we'll talk about being successful, but arguably much smaller and much more niche?
I wanted to express myself. I wanted to start my own business and have control over my own future, to have some control over that. I was, at Disney, I'd suffered badly from the nonsense politics that was at that particular large company, and the slow pace of that, because I felt I was more creative, more dynamic, wanted to solve problems quicker, and wanted to try out things that were probably a little bit lateral for most people and for most big companies. I wanted to go back to my roots. I wanted to go back to working with my hands for a while, rather than sitting at a desk all day long and the end of a corridor. It wasn't quite like that, but I wanted to be out there. I wanted to have another steep learning curve. I'm a person that enjoys steep learning curves. And as I said, it was this kind of trying to find the right time and the right market conditions. And I knew there was a little, diamond to be polished. There was a little piece of carbon in or charcoal in what is Peruvian food. And I could see it developing first outside in Chile, then a little bit in Brazil, then a little bit on the west coast of the US in San Francisco, then a little bit in Madrid, and then it was like, there's something happening, there's a wave coming. And I just thought, I really thought that, and this is really important for any of you who have connection with your roots, anywhere you are, I really thought that I need to do this because I'd seen, having lived in this country for 20 odd years or more, and seen how aspects, and culture is very important to me, and I really believe in culture and tradition with lowercase letters, but nevertheless they're powerful. I really believe that I need to represent this and be the ambassador and spokesperson for this and create this for my mission. Because if somebody else does it, and they might do it incorrectly, they might do it, there's a big chance they'll exploit it for the wrong reasons and represent it in the wrong way. And I'd seen that happen because I'd been tracking all my life Latin culture, Latin American culture, whether it's through big brands, drinks brands, rum brands, or whether it's through pop artists that were a little bit tacky for my liking, or they were purporting in their music videos stuff that wasn't the essence of our culture. And I wanted to make sure that there was a new type of way of presenting Latin culture in this country that was still colourful and vibrant and exotic and wonderful, but also, intellectual and smart and stylish and forward-looking, progressive. And I thought, I need to do that because of that. That's really important. And if we don't do it, it's going to be another place that this might be too stereotyped or messed up with.
But that's a huge challenge to go into something as ambitious as that, having come from a background where there's structure and there are presumably, well, especially in Disney's case, thousands of people arguably around you to help you. You wanted to give all that up to create something from scratch that might not have worked.
Small is beautiful. Small is beautiful. Size is nothing. We are all connected anyway. We're all here together. We're all enjoying each other's company. We're all working with each other, sharing ideas. We can be sharing ideas as a room today, and we'll help that happen today. We don't have to be in a big company to do that, to enjoy our lives and to make money from that. And
was that the key learning you took from those businesses to launch your group? That you wanted to create something that was quality-wise strong, but not necessarily big?
No, I think, look, at iTunes and at Apple, and from Steve, for all his faults, the thing that I learned was his sort of absolute focus on the customer experience, no nonsense, and he was massively technology savvy, and style-wise, etc., but nothing came before that customer experience. That customer experience and the simplicity within which you moved from one step to another was just so important. To have, in a way, at Disney in the last year, we came up with a phrase, sort of one mission, one vision. Was very strategic thinking, but it's also like cutting right through. What are you about? Boom, right through, right in the middle. And again, that's a bit like that customer experience. Not having any switch-offs along the way that can impede that part is so important. That's what I learned at Apple. I found some very intelligent people there. Not so much politics, not so many politics as at Disney. At Disney, what I learned was that there is, whether you created a thing, a story, Disney's full of stories, right? So whether it's Pinocchio or whether it's High School Musical, whether it's Lion King or something else, they call them franchises at Disney. But I learned that it's a story, and a story can also touch people's lives in all kinds of ways, not just in the way it's broadcast. So for example, it's usually through TV, High School Musical, it began in TV, or it could be in film. That's usually where Disney has their first points of contact with their initial story. And then there's a way of telling that story and continuing that relationship with customers through other ways, whether it's a consumer product, whether it's a theatrical release, whether it's a musical on stage, whether it's a computer game, etc. And so that's what I learned from Disney, that the story maybe of Peruvian food could be, yes, primarily making money out of a restaurant, but also it could be told, in a restaurant there's music playing, right? So why don't we give that music to customers through Spotify playlists or through selling records? Why don't we create an event outside that is like a mini festival of music, arts and food? Peruvian culture has got textile, it's got art, it's got all kinds of creativity around it. Why don't we explain that, support that, showcase that, maybe try and make money out of it, but maybe not, because we've got the core of the restaurants that put bums on seats, make money. But just add all those things to it to tell the story about Peruvian food, Peruvian culture, which is so different, because we can all learn from these things and have fun with them.
But this is really unusual to hear the owner of restaurants do more than bums on seats, eating, the experience in the restaurant. Your vision is about widening this, that it's more than that. It's before they get to the restaurant. It's after they've been to the restaurant. It's more of a brand story than a restaurant story, isn't it?
Not brand, it's more of a creative story, more of an experience story, more of a connection story, more of a, let me touch your heart, let me touch your mind, let me give you a hug, physically touch, smell, taste, it's all of that.
It's emotion.
Yes, absolutely, yeah. as well.
Yeah.
So that's, we're just trying to express ourselves in all these different ways and try to capture people to come to our restaurants through these different touch points as well, and to enrich their lives. Our mission, our mission statement is, we are here to enrich people's lives with excellence in Peruvian food, arts and culture.
And some would say that's really brave, because in Britain we don't know much about Peru, arguably a bit parochial, or we're used to Thai food or Chinese food. We're not used to Peruvian food, so isn't the market, it was a brave move because the market's quite small. Well,
two things, yeah. And just going back to the last question, we started our restaurants business in 2012. Just feels like yesterday, and it's not far back. But look at how things have evolved now. We now have food festivals that are happening everywhere. We have venues and experience and places that mix all kinds of entertainment. We have bowling alleys that serve fine dining food. We have restaurants that have a whole series of darts within them. We have all these different experiences happening. We have hot tub and cinema kind of F&B kind of events as well. So all of that experience-led hospitality has grown immensely these last few years because customers want to enjoy themselves there. And the old-fashioned sort of or the experience-led things from way back are still powerful and evolving and exciting and coming back. Whether it's pubs or music festivals having food or hotels that are incorporating all these different experiences, it's becoming a richer time for people to engage in these things.
We've got a slide which we're going to put up, which hopefully you can read that, but sums up and perhaps you can talk us through this, but sums up your mission of the experience being wider at Ceviche and Andina than in the restaurant. So do you want to just explain, because I've never seen a slide like this from a restaurant, that's for sure. So just explain at home and out of home this concept of widening it.
Yeah, so I think it's on this focus of looking at the customer journey and the way we as people interact with food and going out or just with food in general. And we should go back to that. Peru is really difficult and so different.
I'll give you a hard time on that in a moment.
Yeah. But so, you know, when you're asleep, you might dream about it, right? Then you wake up, you might feel hungry. The first thing that you have might be a glass of water, might be a glass of milk. Then you might have something for your cereal. Then you might check your social media. Then there might be a post. Then you might switch on the TV, and then there might be a story about something to do that happened in a restaurant or a food scene that's happening. Then you might kind of walk to work, for example, and you might pass a shop, and you might buy something there to eat or drink. And then you might kind of get into work, and you might take that food there, and you're at work, and then you might have something that might be in the fridge at work. Look at all the different interactions that are going on. And so those interactions, that's before I've got you to my restaurant for lunch or I've got you to my restaurant for dinner. So there's many opportunities we can touch people's lives and enrich their lives, sometimes to monetize them, sometimes just to make them think that you're cool or that you're nice or you're lovely or that we love you, or that one day they're going to come and see you, or they're going to tell their friends, or some way of making them your ambassador. And this is what this is about. So at the middle is the heart, is what we are. That's the company name, Ceviche Family. Our values and our mission all sit within that. Our ethics and our credibility all sit within that. Then the sort of restaurant brands. And brands, you know, they're really important because people need to remember them. They carry a lot, but you know, people are more and more wanting to know the truth, the authenticity. Who are the human beings behind this? That's why people are more and more skeptical about large brands, about bigger this and bigger that. People want, you know, this is a country of the champions, the underdog, for Christ's sake. You know, it's the country that loves, you know, people, you know, loves David, not Goliath. And so, you know, brands are really important, but the core of what you're about is much more important. That's how you're going to become much more memorable. And how do you touch people's lives? If you start on the top left-hand side, at home and sort of portable device, and when you're at home or when you're within yourself and you're carrying this, yes, through social platforms, we have interaction through those, website, YouTube channel, email marketing, and yes, the whole sort of data gathering and the whole sort of understanding how to harness data and segment data and approach people with the right thing at the right time, the right message for the right experience is crucially important. That's what at home and portable means. Out of home, and that's owned at the top there. Digital world not owned, so that's TV appearances. I do a few of those. Music on the radio. We have a record company, so I can our music is played on the radio. And I've been on about 3 or 4 BBC 6 music shows. I've been on Radio 2 and others to talk about music. But hey, they asked me about the restaurants as well, so I might as well talk about them. Bums on seats, right?
Free publicity.
So, you know, we talk, you know, there's using these different tools to get to people on radio, on TV, but also to encourage them to come to your restaurant. Review websites, social platforms, and that's sharing information and finding ambassadors and influencers online that you don't own in a way, but they're going to be your ambassadors. And then through podcasts as well, that's guest appearances. And out of home, physical world owned, well, of course, the core experience is in the restaurant, but it's not the only experience, it is the most important experience. That's, you live and die. We're only as good, we always say, as many others, you're only as good as your last dish. And that happens when you're there, when they're digesting this gorgeous food and their tummies are feeling happier and they're enjoying their time there. We have live music in our restaurants. One of our restaurants is an art gallery, and a few others also sell art. We do master classes, and we also do an in-house magazine that talks about all of our restaurants, and I know many other businesses do this kind of stuff, and this is just, some of this has been done before, but it's the combination of these that's really interesting. And then the physical world not owned. So our books are in shops. So again, if my book is in the Waterstones here, people are going to go, oh yeah, that's the brand's there, the name's there. Wonder what that's like, and maybe I'll go to their restaurant when I come down to London. Music in shops is the same thing. It's this ambassadorial tool that sits on a shelf and points to what you're doing in a way as well. Ingredients, products, we have sauces, and we used to do a quinoa business, but we have sauces. And then charity events, theatre. I wrote a play 2 years ago that was a sort of an edible theatre play, sort of like just some silly things that we do just to keep ourselves entertained, but also to bring innovation into the way people are consuming food. And sometimes these things turn into businesses. Sometimes they don't. They just live in people's minds and hearts. But I wrote a play about food, about Peruvian food, that we performed at the Southwark Playhouse in London in front of 200 people, sold out. And it was an edible theatre play, so everyone got to eat what was being prepared on stage. And the story, there's a whole story that went along with it. And now there are several people trying to do that. Well, we did that a couple of years ago. Now there's something with Mamma Mia on stage now that's trying to do the same thing at the O2. And then we do pop-ups and collaborations. So that's a little bit. And I'm sure some of you do all of those, maybe more, or some of you do less. But that's just our example.
It's a great strategy and vision. Does it work?
Yes, you can. Of course it does. It works. Certain things work at certain times. We are living right now through a very challenging period, both our company and I think the marketplace in general. It's hugely evolving, which is very exciting, which brings opportunity for innovation, but also for to look at the core of what you're about. And I'd say one recommendation for you is to look at that core and make it as magical and as brilliant and as excellent, as genius as possible. And in times of plenty, you can be thinly spread, but right now we can't. So that's not what I focus on all the time, all of those things now. The core of what we do is right there, so that's a good reminder. But yes, I think you need to excite people, and you need to find innovative ways that are not just chef on TV, or are not just cookbook, or are not just, we do this one thing and that's it.
So we'll come on to, in a second, how your teams react to this or behave proactively to this strategy. But just going back to Peru, which you wanted to address, surely it's very challenging to create a genre of food that nobody knows anything about, might be suspicious of, might not have tried it, wouldn't be as nice potentially as fish and chips that they know and love. So wasn't there a giant hurdle to you starting this in the first place?
Yes, but luckily there was also blank canvas, and there were some pointers. So Peruvian food is incredible because it takes ancient cuisine from our ancestors, from indigenous people, with ingredients such as quinoa and amaranth and maca and different types of chili and corn. Very healthy, very nutritious cuisine. But also brings that together with the food of migrants that have come to Peru in the last few hundred years, from Spanish to Italian, Chinese, Japanese and African people. You bring all that together, you've got Peruvian food. And the wealth of techniques, ingredients, the wealth of flavors, the variety of flavors is astounding. And so I think, for me it was like, it was beautiful. It's like being an artist with so many colours to paint with. So I kind of studied these different things, but I also looked at my own background. So what was I at the end of the day? I was a record company boss, a marketeer. And what do we do there? We have, record company is all about singles, albums and hit artists, right? So, and the way you do that, the way you have a hit artist and develop a career is by having 5 hit albums, right? That's pretty much a good career for an artist. 20 if you're extremely lucky, and if you're the Rolling Stones or Queen. But if you're Ed Sheeran, for example, 2 or 3, which he's already on, amazing career, best-selling artist, millionaire, whatever. But how do you succeed with that? Well, you build a fantastic team, you build a fantastic album. And what do you do with that? You grab first single, second single, third single. And you sort of go for the ballad first, or the one that's pretty good but not amazing. That's the first single, and you market that. And you test the water, and you convince people, and you touch people. And then people discover you, and you get your opinion leaders. The second single is like when you got to get the real sticky one in there. And that's that. You got to get that one on Radio 1, and you got to get that one on Galaxy, and you got to get that top of the iTunes chart. And then the third single. And then after the third single, then you sell the album. Then you go, the album's now available. And they'll go, oh, I bought the first single, then I don't care if it's already on it, I'll buy the whole album. So then they go, wow, I'll buy the whole album. That's where the money is. And then the concerts come, and then the publishing starts rolling in because the music is on adverts or on the films. And then it's a business, right? That's a success, that's a hit. So I thought, how can I do that with our restaurants? Well, the menu is just like an album. It's got 30 dishes. And maybe if I focus on first dish, second dish, third dish, maybe if I take the best pictures of the first dish, second dish, and third dish, spend my time on those 3 dishes, making them like knockout out this world. And maybe if the whole menu is, as they say in the music industry, all killers, no fillers, right? Because that's what you want from an album. Isn't it disappointing when you get the first you get 2 or 3 singles on an album, you get the album, you go, oh God, they're all fillers, aren't they? They're all annoying songs, they're all rubbish. But if they're all like, wow, these are all amazing, then you're really, really happy, and then you recommend that album to your friends. The same with the menu. So, in my first book, I can't remember, we've got 100 recipes in here.
Yeah.
But the first recipe is Don Ceviche. And we had like a 3 or 4 day shoot for the photos for the recipes. And on average, they were supposed to take about 45 minutes to an hour each. I spent seven hours on this photo because I knew it would be a hit,
was the killer.
a hit single. Yeah. And I road tested it, through our restaurants, and that was a hit as well. But I wanted this to be iconic.
And that got lots of people going to the website to see you making it on the website, didn't it? Was that the dish that almost crashed your website or something?
Yeah. Well, that dish, with the fact that it's stunning to taste, but then you've got to tell the story of that dish. That dish is the national dish of Peru, and that dish has a lot behind it. And it's the ultimate ceviche, I think, in terms of recipe. So it's based on a classic recipe, but also with a twist. So it's a unique, creative thing. It's like Ed Sheeran's songs. They're bits of other songs as well, because they've been influenced by people that came before him as well. Yeah. But that dish became a top dish as per the Sunday Times, top 10 dish in the UK, top 5 dish in London, as per Time Out. But that's because we not only made it beautifully and sourced the ingredients perfectly, and because it was a creative dish with a great story, but also because we marketed it well as well to tell that story. So menu, album, singles, dishes, and then the brigade in the kitchen. It's just like a band. And my restaurants are all, you can see the theatre of cooking. We started with that. We noticed that would be important. Now many restaurants have got the kitchen open, and chefs are proud, and hopefully they're not grumpy, not pulling their trousers up or anything like that. And it's a theatre. You're on stage the minute you walk in, because people can see you, and you've got nowhere to hide. So theatre of cooking was really important. So the brigade is just like a group, like a band on stage. Not just because what you're showing, but the drummer is just like the guy in the grill section, or the guitarist can be someone on the pastry chef, or someone in the veg section can be someone on keyboards, and the director is just like the band leader or the front person.
So let's talk about the band or the brigade and the culture, because this is what probably a lot of people in the room maybe are successful with and struggle with at the same time. It's people and it's culture. So here's your vision, and you've successfully opened one restaurant after another. But how do you get your people, A, to stay with you, and B, believe in your vision and your culture? Because it's not easy. So what are the tips on how you make them believe in what you're doing?
I've always sort of talked about, and I don't know where I got this, and I don't know. Through having great bosses and idiot bosses, I've kind of come up with 4 needs that everyone has: creative needs, intellectual needs, financial needs, and emotional needs. Right? As someone working with you, creative needs, emotional needs, intellectual needs, and financial needs. So some people need more of those than others, and you've got to find out what they are within each person. And those things are crucial, absolutely crucial, to create loyalty, to understand, to create authenticity and great communication, to create great performance and great motivation, to make sure people are thriving and doing the best work they can.
So is it like tapping into one of those or all of those? Presumably
Understanding what each of those are in each person that you work with. Ideally your senior leadership team for a start, essentially, absolutely, and then seeing which of those people need the volume turned up more than others. So if it's financial, well, that's obvious. What's the bonus structure? What's the incentive? Financial doesn't necessarily mean, if I'm sitting with you and you work with me, it doesn't necessarily mean that you get a great deal. So what is good for you in terms of finance? Is it what you need to pay your bills, or is it what you need because you want a new car, or is it because you're comparing yourself with another person in another company, or is it because you're watching what I'm earning? It's which of those, and understanding which of those it is, and how we can come to a great place where you feel comfortable and excited and happy about it.
All I need is to earn enough to eat at Ceviche twice a week. That'll do me.
Thanks
That'll be
very much.
fantastic.
Please, yeah. So that's the financial one. The emotional one is really about purpose. It's like, so what is your purpose? What is my purpose? What is our purpose? Where are we going? Why are we here beyond making money to do? And in my case, luckily, and well, not luckily, it's by purpose that I've made it like that. Peruvian food is very healthy. It's good for you. It's good for the world. So I'm doing something to make this world a better place.
And you're tapping into a health trend at the moment.
Yeah, but I don't even care about that. We were pioneers before we knew it in that way. We were doing gluten-free, we were doing vegan, we're doing all that. We in Peru we've been farm to table, organic, sustainable, nose to tail for a few thousand years. I don't need Dan Barber to tell me that. With all due respect to
British
fine
who are catching
chefs.
up with the Peruvians.
I don't need other people to tell me that. That's what we've been doing, and it's not me, and it's not fancy posh chefs in the capital city. It's hard-working, women chefs in humble restaurants in the mountains of Peru that have been doing that and serving that. And that's the tradition that they've been having. Those are the people that inspire me. That is purpose. And that is humble purpose, which will touch people's hearts and touch my team. So what is the purpose? What is the purpose beyond, paying each other's bills or making more money than that? That's purpose. Then creativity is, we're all creative, whether you're in operations or whether you're a concept developer. You're all creative. Creativity is needed to, sometimes comes in extreme situations when there's an accident where someone has a disease and you have to think outside of the box. Because whatever you're told or whatever you've learned, it ain't good enough. And you've got kind of either you're forced out of it or you have to think out of it because you need another solution. And the extreme is when your closest and dearest is about to die and you think, is that doctor right? I better take a second opinion. That's creativity. Or when the other second opinion says, well, you could go this way or that way. It's like, okay, well, how about the other way? Because I've just found out that it could go the other way. That's lateral thinking. That's creativity. That's moving out. I'm talking about death here, but it's also about thinking, okay, well, if everyone's doing it that way, what happens if I do the opposite? So there's ways of thinking about creativity. One is, as I say, thinking outside of the box. But sometimes you can mess your brain up by also thinking in a good way, by thinking what's the opposite and start from there. You know, if you think of a customer journey, you start from here, from when you wake up. But how about when they've gone to sleep, and start there?
So, for
So
example,
that's creativity. And so what incentivizes my team? How do we bring that creativity in there? How do they feel fulfilled? Because if you have your creativity fulfilled, whether it's that in a way that you're doing that in the finance, in the accounts department, or whether that's in the way you're doing it as a KP, so important. It's so fulfilling for that individual in your team. Then there's intellectual, and then there's.
But isn't it getting
emotional.
harder to keep people occupied, keep your teams occupied? I think in most hospitality businesses these days, perhaps there's more ambition, especially in a younger generation, who want to do more faster or move on more quickly to somewhere else. How do you tempt them to stay? How do you keep them for more than 2 years, more than 18 months?
Well, you treat them like adults for a start. You are as transparent as possible, and so we do that through the magazine that we have internally, the weekly sort of newsletter that we do. Some people have different WhatsApp groups, or a new type of version that's more compliant than WhatsApp or whatever. We have regular meetings to understand and show people how the business is performing, not just through finance but through customer feedback, for example. So that engaging your team, you know, the gloves are off right now. We can find out how much the CEO earns. We can find out, you know, which businesses are ethical or not ethical, or sustainable or not sustainable. So, you know, even for a COO or for a pot wash guy, you know, they might want to know all this stuff. And even if you tell them, some of it might go over their head, but some of it they might go, oh, that's bloody great, I'm going to aim for that. And so all these things motivate them. In my case, in terms of recruitment, a lot of our waiters and waitresses come to us because we've got a record label. It's quite cool. Yeah. They're like, we like music. Yeah, of course, you're 22. Of course you're going to like music. Oh, wow, you do a record label and you do food? Yeah, because we don't believe in breaking boundaries between the different creative arts. Believe, okay, so you're a waitress, but you're also a really keen photographer. We might work with you on something. Thanks for letting us know. This is about using everyone's skills.